My mother chose my lazy stepbrother over me and tried to take my college fund to pay for his GED classes even though he spent 4 years gaming all day, so my father evicted her from his house and her life fell apart. I'm 18F and this whole thing started falling apart about 2 months ago. My mom, 44F, and my dad, 47M, divorced when I was 12. My stepfather Keith is 61 and my stepbrother Waylon is 28. I need to go back a bit to explain how everything got to this point. When my parents split up, my dad made sure to set up a college fund for me. He worked in finance and he was really specific about making sure I would be taken care of. The fund had about $80,000 in it by the time I turned 16. My dad told me about it on my 16th birthday and said that if I kept my grades up and stayed focused, I wouldn't have to worry about student loans like he did. That conversation happened at a diner near his apartment. He slid the paperwork across the table and told me I had earned it just by being his kid and working hard in school. The divorce agreement had some complicated parts about the fund. My mom was listed as a secondary custodian until I turned 19, which seemed normal at the time. My dad trusted her back then. He thought they could still cooperate when it came to me even though their marriage didn't work out. That turned out to be a mistake. My mom married Keith when I was 14. He moved into our house about 6 months after they got married. Keith had been married before and had Waylon from that marriage. Waylon was 24 when Keith moved in. He had been living with his actual mother, but apparently there was some kind of falling out. The details were always fuzzy, but Waylon showed up with Keith and just never left. The house we lived in was actually still in my dad's name. My parents had agreed that my mom could stay there until I turned 18 or graduated high school, whichever came later. It was part of keeping things stable for me. My dad paid the property taxes and handled the major repairs. My mom paid the utilities and day-to-day maintenance. It worked fine until Keith and Waylon arrived. Waylon didn't have a job when he moved in. Keith said he was between opportunities. That was 4 years ago. Waylon spent most of his time in the converted garage that became his room. He had 3 monitors set up for gaming and he would stay up until 4 or 5 in the morning most nights. I could hear him yelling at his screen through the walls. My mom started asking me to be quiet in the mornings because Waylon needed his sleep. I had to tiptoe around my own house before school. I worked part-time at a grocery store during my junior and senior year. I also volunteered at a food bank on weekends because I wanted my college applications to look good. My grades were solid, mostly A's with a few B's in AP classes. I spent a lot of nights at the kitchen table doing homework while Waylon's gaming sounds came through the wall. My mom would sometimes bring him dinner on a tray so he didn't have to pause his games. She never brought me anything while I was studying. Keith worked in sales, but he was semi-retired. He traveled sometimes for work, but mostly he just watched television and worked on fixing up an old motorcycle in the driveway. He didn't pay much attention to what Waylon did or didn't do. When I asked my mom once why Waylon didn't have to get a job, she said Keith was handling it and it wasn't my business. My mom missed my high school graduation ceremony last spring. She said she had to take Waylon to an urgent care appointment because he had a migraine. I found out later from Keith that Waylon just wanted her to drive him to pick up a new graphics card he had ordered. Keith mentioned it casually like it was funny. I sat in the auditorium and watched other families take pictures. My dad was there with his girlfriend and they took me out to dinner after. He asked where my mom was and I told him she had something come up. The thing with my mom and Waylon got worse after Keith moved in. She started calling herself a boy mom even though Waylon wasn't technically her son. She bought him specialized gaming chairs and expensive headphones. She made his favorite meals and did his laundry. She joined online groups for mothers of adult sons and posted about how rewarding it was to support a young man finding his path. Waylon never thanked her for any of it as far as I saw. He just took everything like it was supposed to happen. I got accepted to a state university about 40 minutes from home. It had a good program for what I wanted to study and the costs were manageable with my fund. I planned to live in the dorms for the first year and then maybe get an apartment. My dad helped me fill out all the financial aid paperwork. Everything was set up. I was supposed to start in the fall. Then in June, Waylon made an announcement at dinner. He said he had been thinking about his future and he wanted to get his GED. My mom practically jumped out of her chair. She started talking about how proud she was and how this was such a big step. Keith nodded and said it was about time. Waylon sat there looking pleased with himself like he had just solved world hunger. My mom spent the next week researching GED programs. She printed out practice tests and made a study schedule for Waylon. She bought him new notebooks and pens. She told everyone on her Facebook about his decision. Her friends commented with congratulations and encouragement. She changed her profile picture to one of her and Waylon together. I was working extra shifts at the store that week to save up some money for school. When I got home one evening, my mom asked me to sit down at the kitchen table. She had her laptop open and a notebook in front of her. She started talking about family investments and supporting each other through transitions. Then she said she needed to put my college fund on hold for a year or two. I asked her what she meant. She explained that Waylon needed financial support to get his GED and get started on a career path. She said the GED classes cost money and he would need supplies and possibly a tutor. She said he might need help with transportation or other expenses while he was studying. She said once he got his GED he could start looking at trade schools or certificate programs, and those would cost money too. She said I was young and could wait a bit longer to start college. She said I could work full-time for a year and save up my own money. She said it would teach me responsibility. I told her I had already been accepted. I told her I had already signed up for classes. I told her my dad set up that fund specifically for me. I told her I had worked hard for 4 years to make sure I could use it. She leaned back in her chair and did this thing where she tilted her head like she was talking to a small child. She said I was being selfish. She said Waylon had struggled for years and deserved a chance to turn things around. She said I had advantages Waylon never had. She said my dad could just give me more money if I really needed it. I said no. I said the fund was mine and I wasn't giving it to Waylon. I said he had 4 years to figure out his life while I was working and studying. I said it wasn't my job to fund his GED. That's when she laughed. It wasn't a friendly laugh. It was this short, sharp sound. She closed her laptop and said the fund was technically under her control until I turned 19. She said she had already talked to the bank and put a hold on it. She said Waylon needed a head start and I was just going to have to understand. Then she got up and walked out of the kitchen. I sat there looking at the empty chair. Then I went to my room and called my dad. My dad answered on the second ring. I told him what my mom had just said. There was silence on his end for probably 10 seconds. Then he asked me to repeat exactly what she had told me. I went through it again. He asked if Keith was part of this decision. I said I didn't know, but probably. He asked if I had any paperwork or documents about the fund. I said I had the stuff he gave me on my 16th birthday. He told me not to worry. He said he would handle it. His voice sounded different than normal. It was very calm and very flat. He said he would call me back in a few hours. Then he hung up. I didn't see my mom the rest of that night. She stayed in her bedroom with Keith. Waylon was in the garage. I made myself some dinner and tried to do some reading for my summer prep work, but I couldn't focus. My dad called me back around 10 that night. He said he had made some calls. He said my mom did not actually have the authority to freeze the fund the way she claimed. He said there were specific conditions in the divorce decree about the fund and she was violating them. He said he was getting his lawyer involved. Then he asked me about the house. He asked if I remembered that he still owned the house. I said yes. He asked if my mom knew that the arrangement was supposed to end when I turned 18 or graduated high school. I said I didn't know what she knew. He said the agreement was that she could stay there to provide stability for me during my childhood. He said my childhood was over. He said she had just shown him exactly who she was and he was done being generous. He told me he was going to give her notice that she needed to move out. He said he was selling the house. He asked if I wanted to move in with him until school started. I said yes. 3 days later I came home from work and there was a for sale sign in the front yard. There were also 2 moving trucks in the driveway. My dad was standing on the lawn with his lawyer and a few guys in work uniforms. He waved at me when I pulled up. My mom was standing in the doorway. Her face was red and her hair was messy. She was on her phone. She was talking very fast to someone. When she saw me she started walking over, but my dad stepped between us. He told her she needed to focus on packing. She started yelling at him about how he couldn't do this. He just handed her an envelope. His lawyer said something about eviction notices and property rights. My mom stopped yelling and just stood there holding the envelope. Keith came out of the house. He looked at the trucks and the sign and then at my dad. He asked what was going on. My dad said he was reclaiming his property and they had 30 days to vacate. Keith started to say something, but then he just turned around and went back inside. Waylon appeared in the garage doorway. He had his headset around his neck. He looked confused. My mom shouted at him to start packing his things. He asked why. She didn't answer him. She just went back inside. I grabbed some of my stuff from my room while the movers were there. My dad had already arranged for most of my things to be packed up and moved to his place. I didn't talk to my mom or Keith or Waylon. I just got what I needed and left. My mom tried calling me that night. I didn't answer. She sent a bunch of texts saying I had betrayed the family. She said I had turned my dad against her. She said I was ruining Waylon's chance at a better life. She said I would regret this. I blocked her number. Update 1: a lot happened since I posted. My mom and Keith moved out of the house at the end of July. They found a rental apartment about 20 minutes away. The place is small from what I heard. 2 bedrooms. Waylon had to take the living room couch because there wasn't a 3rd bedroom. My dad's lawyer got the college fund situation sorted out within 2 weeks of that dinner table conversation. Turned out my mom never actually had the authority to freeze it. She had lied about talking to the bank. The divorce decree was very specific about the fund only being used for my education and my mom's role was just administrative. She was supposed to co-sign certain documents when I turned 18, but she had no power to redirect the money. My dad removed her as secondary custodian and set it up so I had full control once I started school. The fund is locked in now for tuition and approved educational expenses. I started college in late August. I'm living in the dorms like I planned. My roommate is fine. Classes are harder than high school but manageable. My dad helped me move in and took me shopping for stuff I needed. His girlfriend came too and she was nice about everything. My mom showed up at my dorm in early September. I was coming back from class and she was sitting on a bench outside my building. She looked different. Her hair was grayer than I remembered. She had lost weight. She was wearing clothes I had seen her wear around the house for yard work. She stood up when she saw me. She asked if we could talk. I kept walking toward the building entrance. She followed me. She said she needed to explain things. She said I didn't understand how hard everything had been. She said Keith's retirement wasn't as secure as they thought. She said Waylon really was trying to change. She said she made a mistake but she was still my mother. I stopped walking and turned around. I asked her if she came to apologize for trying to steal my college fund. She didn't say anything. I asked her if she came to apologize for missing my graduation. She said that wasn't fair. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said she wanted me to understand her position. I told her I understood perfectly. Then I went inside. The dorm has key card access so she couldn't follow me. I watched through the window and she stood there for a few minutes. Then she walked back to her car. She started posting on Facebook after that. She didn't mention me by name but she posted a lot about ungrateful children and how hard it is to be a mother when your kids turn on you. She posted about family loyalty and supporting each other through hard times. She posted inspirational quotes about forgiveness and letting go of toxic people. A bunch of her friends commented with support. Some of them sent me friend requests or messages asking what happened. I ignored all of it. My dad's girlfriend showed me some of the posts because she's friends with some of the same people. One of my mom's cousins sent me a long message about how I needed to respect my mother and family comes first. I blocked that cousin. Then I blocked about 15 other people who were connected to my mom. Keith's daughter from his first marriage reached out to me in October. Her name is Amanda and she's 35. We had met a few times at family things but didn't really know each other. She sent me a message apologizing for what her dad and my mom did. She said she heard about the college fund thing from her dad. She said her dad and Waylon had always had a weird relationship where Keith just let Waylon do whatever he wanted. She said she wasn't surprised this happened. She said her dad was probably going along with whatever my mom wanted because it was easier than dealing with Waylon himself. Amanda told me that Waylon had apparently racked up about $12,000 in credit card debt over the last 3 years. Keith had been paying the minimum payments but the debt kept growing. Amanda said her dad mentioned it to her once when he was complaining about money. She said Waylon had been buying gaming equipment and ordering food delivery constantly. Keith never made him pay for any of it. That explained some things. It made sense why my mom was so desperate to get access to my fund. They were probably drowning in bills and Waylon's debt and thought they could just take my money to fix everything. My dad sold the house in October. He got a good price for it. He said he was going to put some of the money into a retirement account and use some of it to help with my college expenses that the fund didn't cover. He said the rest was going toward a down payment on a condo for himself and his girlfriend. I asked him if my mom had tried to contact him about the house sale. He said she sent his lawyer a letter claiming she deserved part of the proceeds because she had lived there for years. His lawyer sent back a letter explaining that she had been living there rent-free as a courtesy and had no claim to the property. She didn't respond after that. Things were quiet for a few weeks after the house sold. Then I got an email from my mom in early November. She said she needed help. She said Keith's hours had been cut at work. She said they were struggling to make rent. She said Waylon's GED classes weren't going well and he had dropped out after 3 weeks. She said she had made mistakes but she was still my mother and I shouldn't abandon her. She didn't apologize for anything specific. She just said things had been hard and she hoped I could understand. I didn't reply to the email. I deleted it. Update 2: I'm writing this from my dorm room during winter break. Most people went home but I stayed here. My dad is on a trip with his girlfriend and said I could stay at his place but I wanted some quiet time to myself. A lot has happened since my last update. My mom and Keith's situation got worse. I heard about most of this from Amanda, Keith's daughter. She's been keeping me updated because she said I deserve to know what was going on even though it's a mess. In late November, Keith and my mom had a huge fight in their apartment. The neighbors heard it and someone called the building manager. Amanda said her dad told her that my mom accused him of not supporting Waylon enough. Keith apparently yelled back that Waylon was a lazy piece of garbage and he was tired of everyone acting like the sun shone out of his backside. Those were Amanda's words, not mine, but she said her dad was really worked up when he called her about it. The fight was about money. Keith's sales job had cut his commission structure and he was making about 40% less than he made last year. My mom was working part-time at a retail store but it wasn't bringing in much. Waylon still didn't have a job. He had been applying to places according to my mom but nobody was hiring him. Amanda said that was probably because Waylon had no work history and no skills and was 28 years old with nothing to show for it. The credit card debt Amanda mentioned before had grown. It was up to almost $18,000 by December. Keith had stopped making even the minimum payments. The credit card company started calling constantly. My mom apparently told Keith that he needed to handle it because it was his son's debt. Keith told her that she was the one who enabled Waylon for the last 4 years so she could deal with it. In mid-December, Waylon had some kind of breakdown at a grocery store. This is according to Amanda, who heard it from Keith. Waylon was with my mom and they were shopping. My mom said something about needing to stick to a budget and Waylon started yelling at her in the middle of the store. He said she had ruined his life. He said she convinced him he didn't need to work or try because she would take care of everything. He said she made him soft and useless. He called her pathetic. Then he walked out of the store and left her there with a full cart. My mom called Keith crying. Keith had to leave work to come pick her up. When Keith got home that night, Waylon was gone. He had packed a duffel bag and left. He didn't say where he was going. My mom tried calling him but he didn't answer. Waylon stayed gone for 3 days. He finally called my mom and said he was staying with a friend. He said he needed space. My mom begged him to come back. He hung up on her. He came back to the apartment a week later to get more of his stuff. He told my mom he was moving in with some people he knew from online gaming. He said he would be in touch. He left again and didn't come back. My mom stopped posting on Facebook after that. Her last post was some quote about how the people you sacrifice the most for are the ones who hurt you the worst. Then nothing. Amanda told me that my mom had been calling Keith's phone constantly asking if he had heard from Waylon. Keith told her to stop calling him at work. She started texting instead. Keith stopped responding to most of the texts. Right before Christmas, my mom sent me another email. This one was different. She said she knew I probably wouldn't respond but she needed to tell me something. She said she found out that Waylon had been using her credit card without permission for the last 6 months. He had been ordering things online and getting cash advances. She said she didn't notice because Keith handled most of the bills and she didn't check the statements carefully. She said there was almost $9,000 in charges she didn't authorize. She said she reported it to the credit card company but they said since Waylon had access to her card before and she had given him permission to use it in the past, they couldn't classify it as fraud. She said she might have to file a police report against Waylon to get the charges reversed. She said she didn't want to do that because he was still her boy. She said she was telling me this because she wanted me to understand why she had tried to use my college fund. She said she was desperate. She said she had made bad choices but she was trying to hold the family together. She said she hoped someday I would forgive her. I still didn't respond. I forwarded the email to my dad because I thought he should know what was going on. He said it sounded like my mom was finally realizing the consequences of her choices. He said he felt sorry for her but there wasn't anything he could or should do about it. Update 3. This is probably my last update about this situation. I'm writing this in early March and I think everything that's going to happen has basically happened. Keith left my mom in January. Amanda told me about it. He apparently packed his stuff one night while my mom was at work and just moved out. He left a note saying the relationship wasn't working and he needed to focus on his own retirement and peace of mind. He took half the money from their joint checking account. He moved into a small studio apartment on the other side of town. My mom tried calling him for a few days. He didn't answer. She showed up at his workplace and his boss had to ask her to leave. She sent him emails. He blocked her address. Amanda said her dad told her he was done trying to fix other people's problems and he just wanted to be left alone. The apartment my mom and Keith had been renting was too expensive for my mom on her own. She had to move out at the end of January. She found a room in a house that someone was renting out. It's just one room with a shared bathroom. She put most of her furniture in storage because there was no space for it. Waylon never came back. My mom posted one thing on Facebook in February asking if anyone had heard from him. A few people commented saying they would pray for her. One of her friends said Waylon had posted something on Instagram about traveling around and staying with friends. My mom commented on that post asking him to call her. He didn't respond. I heard from Amanda that the credit card debt is still sitting there. My mom can't pay it. Her credit score tanked. She's still working at the retail job and picked up some hours at a coffee shop on weekends. Amanda said her dad feels guilty sometimes but mostly he just seems relieved to be away from the situation. In February, my mom sent me one more email. It was long. She didn't apologize. She listed all the things that had gone wrong. She said I could have helped her but I chose not to. She said I watched her life fall apart and did nothing. She said Keith abandoned her. She said Waylon used her and threw her away. She said my dad poisoned me against her. She said she gave up everything for her family and got nothing in return. She said she didn't expect anything from me anymore. She said she understood I had made my choice. She said maybe someday when I was older, I would understand how hard it is to be a mother. Then she said she wouldn't contact me again unless I reached out first. I deleted the email. I haven't heard from her since. Waylon is apparently couch surfing. Amanda saw a post from him on social media last month. He was asking if anyone needed a roommate and saying he was good at keeping to himself. Someone commented asking if he had a job and he didn't respond to that comment. Amanda thinks he's probably just bouncing around from place to place depending on who will let him stay. My mom is still living in that rented room as far as I know. Her Facebook is mostly just shares of other people's posts now. No more quotes about family or sacrifice. Just random stuff about sales at stores or recipes. I finished my first year of college. My grades are good. I made some friends. I joined a study group for one of my harder classes. I got a work-study position in the library for next semester. The college fund is covering everything I need. My dad checks in with me once a week to see how I'm doing. I don't think about my mom much anymore. When I do think about her, I don't feel much of anything. It's just a fact that she exists somewhere and made the choices she made. I'm not angry about it. I'm not sad about it. It just is what it is. Sometimes I see parents moving their kids into the dorms or meeting them for lunch on campus. I watch them and think about how different things could have been if my mom had just been a different person. But she wasn't a different person. She was exactly who she was. And that's all there is to it. I'm planning to stay in the dorms again next year. My dad said if I want to get an apartment after that he'll help me look. I'm thinking about doing a summer internship this year. There's a program through my major that places students with local companies. The application is due next month. That's where things stand. My mom is somewhere in a rented room. Waylon is somewhere on someone's couch. Keith is in his studio apartment. And I'm here finishing up my freshman year and planning for summer. Everyone ended up where their choices took them. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I refused to let my inexperienced sister plan my wedding and hired my stepdad's sister instead. My sister started spreading lies, posted fake bad reviews online, and even contacted a reporter to try and destroy her reputation. I am Maria, 28F, and I need some outside perspective on this mess with my family. My sister Carmen, 24F, and my mother have been giving me the silent treatment for 3 months now, and honestly I don't know if I made the right choice anymore. Let me give you some background first. My parents divorced when I was 12 and Carmen was 8. Dad moved to another state for work reasons, so we only saw him during summers and some holidays. Mom remarried when I was 15 to David, who brought his sister Elena, 45F, into our lives. Elena never had kids of her own and she basically became like a second mom to me and Carmen. The thing is, Carmen never really accepted David or Elena. She always complained about them being around, said they were trying to replace our real dad, and made family gatherings uncomfortable with her attitude. I took a different approach. I got close to both David and Elena because they were actually good people who treated us well. Elena especially went out of her way to help me with school projects, drove me to activities when mom was working late, and even helped me apply for college scholarships. After I graduated college, I moved back to our hometown and started working at a marketing firm. Elena had been running her own event planning business for about 15 years by then, and she was really good at it. She had organized several big corporate events and weddings in our area. Her work always looked professional and elegant. Carmen, on the other hand, had dropped out of college after 2 years and was jumping between different jobs. About 2 years ago, she decided she wanted to start her own event planning business too. Mom was super supportive and even gave Carmen money to get started. Carmen did a few small birthday parties and one baby shower for a family friend, but from what I saw in the photos, her work looked pretty basic compared to what Elena did. Now here's where the drama started. I got engaged last year to my boyfriend Jake, 30M, and we started planning our wedding for this past October. We wanted something nice but not too expensive, probably around 80 guests. Mom immediately suggested that Carmen should plan our wedding as a way to help her business grow and to keep the money in the family. I wasn't sure about this idea from the beginning. Carmen had never done a wedding before, and mine would be her biggest event by far. I also wasn't confident in her skills based on what I had seen from her previous work. But Mom kept pushing the idea every time we talked. She said it would mean so much to Carmen and would really help her get established in the business. I told Mom I would think about it, but privately I was already leaning toward asking Elena instead. Elena had done dozens of weddings and I knew she would do an amazing job. Plus, she had already offered to help when she heard about our engagement, even before I asked her officially. The problem was that I knew choosing Elena over Carmen would cause family drama. Carmen had always been jealous of my relationship with Elena and David. She made comments over the years about how I liked my stepfamily more than my real family, which wasn't true but showed how she felt about the situation. I talked to Jake about it, and he agreed that we should go with whoever would do the best job for our special day. He had met both Carmen and Elena several times and could see the difference in their experience levels too. I finally made my decision about 4 months before the wedding. I called Elena first and asked if she would be our wedding planner. She was thrilled and immediately started asking about our vision, budget, and timeline. We set up a meeting for the next week to go over everything in detail. Then I had to tell Mom and Carmen. I decided to call Mom first and explain my reasoning. I told her that while I appreciated Carmen wanting to help, I felt more comfortable going with someone who had more experience with weddings specifically. Mom got quiet on the phone and then said she was disappointed in my choice. She said Carmen had been counting on doing our wedding and this would really hurt her business and her confidence. I explained that this was my wedding day and I needed to make the choice that felt right for Jake and me. Mom said she understood but I could tell she was not happy about it. The next day Carmen called me. She didn't even say hello before she started yelling at me. She said I was selfish and that I always chose David and Elena over my real family. She said I was trying to sabotage her business on purpose because I was jealous of her entrepreneurial spirit. She also brought up old stuff from when we were teenagers, saying I had always been mom's favorite and now I was rubbing it in her face by rejecting her help. I tried to stay calm and explain that this was just a business decision based on experience, but Carmen wouldn't listen. She said if I went through with hiring Elena, she wouldn't come to the wedding at all. Then she hung up on me. Mom called me later that same day and said Carmen was really upset. She asked me to reconsider my decision to keep the peace in the family. She said Elena would understand if I changed my mind, and that family should come first. She also mentioned that Carmen had already started making some preliminary plans and had told a few people she was doing my wedding. This put me in a really difficult position. I didn't want to hurt Carmen, but I also didn't want to risk my wedding day by going with someone inexperienced. I talked to Jake again, and we decided to stick with our original decision. I called Mom back and told her my choice was final. The next few weeks were tense. Carmen stopped responding to my texts and calls. When I ran into her at the grocery store, she walked right past me like I wasn't there. Mom was still talking to me but kept making comments about how sad Carmen was and how this was affecting the whole family. I started second-guessing myself. Maybe I should have given Carmen a chance. Maybe I was being too harsh about her experience level. But then I would remember how important this wedding was to Jake and me, and I knew I had made the right choice for us. Elena and I had several planning meetings, and she was doing an amazing job. She found us a great venue within our budget, connected us with reliable vendors, and had creative ideas that I never would have thought of. She was organized, professional, and always responded to my messages quickly. This confirmed that I had made the right choice. About 2 months before the wedding, things got worse. Mom told me that Carmen was telling people in our extended family that I had rejected her wedding planning services because I thought she wasn't good enough. Some relatives started asking me about it, and I had to explain the situation multiple times. I tried to be diplomatic and just say that we decided to go with someone with more wedding experience, but I could tell some people thought I was being mean to my sister. Carmen also started posting passive-aggressive things on social media about family loyalty and supporting small businesses. She never mentioned me directly, but it was pretty obvious what she was referring to. Some of her friends started commenting supportive messages about how family should stick together, which made me look bad even though they didn't know the whole story. The wedding ended up being absolutely beautiful. Elena did an incredible job with every detail. The decorations were elegant, the timeline ran smoothly, and several guests complimented us on how well organized everything was. Jake and I were so happy with how everything turned out. But the family situation cast a shadow over the day. Carmen didn't come to the wedding, just like she had threatened. Mom came but she seemed distant and left right after dinner instead of staying for dancing. Several relatives asked me where Carmen was, and I had to keep explaining that she chose not to come. It was embarrassing and sad that my own sister missed my wedding day. After we got back from our honeymoon, I tried reaching out to Carmen again. I sent her photos from the wedding and a text saying I missed having her there. She never responded. Mom said Carmen was still too hurt to talk to me and that I needed to apologize for choosing Elena over her. I don't think I should have to apologize for making the best choice for my wedding day. But I also miss my sister and I hate that our family is divided like this. Some relatives have told me I should just apologize to keep the peace, even if I don't think I did anything wrong. Jake thinks I should stick to my principles and that Carmen is being unreasonable. Elena feels terrible that her involvement caused family drama, even though I keep telling her it's not her fault. So AITA for choosing my stepdad's sister as my wedding planner instead of my own sister? Should I apologize to try to fix our relationship, even though I don't think I did anything wrong? Update 1: I got a lot of responses to my original post, and most people said I wasn't wrong for choosing the more experienced wedding planner. That gave me some confidence that I had made the right decision. But things have gotten more complicated since then. About a week after I posted, I got a call from my cousin Lisa, 26F, who is Carmen's best friend from childhood. Lisa said she needed to tell me something important about what had been going on behind the scenes. Apparently, Carmen had been telling people a very different version of events than what actually happened. She was saying that I had promised her the wedding planning job months ago and then changed my mind at the last minute without warning. She also claimed that I had said her previous work was embarrassing and that I didn't trust her abilities. She was telling people that I chose Elena specifically to hurt her because I knew it would damage her new business. None of this was true. I never promised Carmen anything, and while I had concerns about her experience level, I never said anything mean about her work to her face. Lisa said she started questioning Carmen's story when the details didn't add up, especially since Lisa knew how much Elena had helped our family over the years. Lisa also told me something else that shocked me. Carmen had apparently been planning to use my wedding as a major marketing opportunity. She had already designed flyers with my wedding photos that she was planning to use to advertise her business, even though she hadn't been officially hired yet. She had told several potential clients that she was doing her sister's wedding and was using that to try to book more events. This explained why Carmen was so angry about my decision. It wasn't just about family loyalty like she had been claiming. She had been counting on using my wedding to launch her business, and when I chose Elena instead, it messed up her whole marketing strategy. Lisa felt bad about telling me all this, but she said she thought I deserved to know the truth. She also said that Carmen had been bad-mouthing Elena to anyone who would listen, saying that Elena had stolen the job from her and that step-families always cause problems. I decided I needed to talk to Mom about this new information. When I called her, she admitted that she knew about Carmen's marketing plans. She said Carmen had showed her the flyers and had been excited about the business opportunities my wedding would bring. Mom said she didn't think it was wrong for Carmen to want to use the wedding for her business since families should help each other succeed. I asked Mom why she didn't tell me about this when she was pushing me to hire Carmen. Mom said she didn't think it mattered because Carmen would have done a good job regardless of her business motivations. But I felt like this was information I should have had when making my decision. If I had known Carmen was planning to use my wedding as a marketing tool, I definitely would have been more hesitant to hire her. I also found out that Mom had been more involved in Carmen's business than I realized. She wasn't just giving Carmen money to get started, she was basically funding the whole operation. Carmen was using Mom's credit cards to pay for supplies and had moved back into Mom's house to save money. Mom was treating Carmen's business success as her own project. This made me understand why Mom had been so pushy about Carmen doing my wedding. It wasn't just about family harmony, Mom had a financial investment in Carmen's success too. I tried calling Carmen directly to address the lies she had been spreading, but she still wouldn't answer my calls. I sent her a long text message explaining that I knew what she had been telling people and that her version of events wasn't accurate. I told her I was disappointed that she felt the need to lie about what happened, and that if she wanted to have an honest conversation about our problems, I was willing to listen. Carmen finally responded, but not in the way I expected. She sent back a short message saying that I was the one lying and that I had always treated her badly. She said she was done trying to have a relationship with someone who didn't respect her or support her dreams. She told me not to contact her anymore. This response really surprised me because it was so different from how Carmen used to be. We had our issues growing up, but she was never this hostile or dramatic. I started wondering if something else was going on with her that I didn't know about. I talked to David about the situation since he had known Carmen for over 10 years. He said he had noticed Carmen becoming more bitter and resentful over the past few years, especially after she dropped out of college. He thought she was struggling with feeling like a failure compared to me, and that was making her lash out at everyone who tried to help her. David also told me something interesting. He said Carmen had asked him for a loan a few months ago to help with her business, but he had said no because he didn't think she had a solid business plan. Carmen had gotten angry with him and accused him of not caring about her success. David wondered if Carmen's hostility toward Elena was partly because she was mad at our whole step-family for not supporting her business the way she wanted. I decided to reach out to some of our extended family members who had heard Carmen's version of events. I wanted to set the record straight without getting into a big family drama. I sent messages to my aunts and uncles explaining what really happened and asking them not to take sides in the conflict. Most of them were understanding and said they had suspected there was more to the story. A few relatives told me they had been uncomfortable with some of the things Carmen had said about Elena, since they knew Elena was a good person who had always been kind to our family. But Mom got angry when she found out I was talking to relatives about the situation. She called me and said I was making things worse by airing our family's dirty laundry. She said I should have just let Carmen have her version of events instead of trying to defend myself. Mom accused me of being vindictive and trying to turn the family against Carmen. This conversation with Mom really bothered me. I wasn't trying to hurt Carmen, I just wanted people to know the truth. But Mom seemed to think I should have just accepted being painted as the bad guy to protect Carmen's reputation. Jake was getting frustrated with the whole situation. He said our wedding should have been a happy time, but instead it had turned into months of family drama. He suggested that maybe I should just cut contact with Carmen and Mom for a while to let things cool down. Elena was also feeling guilty about her role in the conflict. She offered to call Carmen and Mom to try to smooth things over, but I told her not to get involved. This wasn't her fault, and I didn't want her to feel responsible for our family problems. So now I'm in a weird position where Carmen won't talk to me, Mom is mad at me for defending myself, and half the family knows there's drama but doesn't know what to believe. I thought choosing the right wedding planner would be a simple decision, but it has turned into this huge mess that keeps getting worse. I'm starting to think there were deeper problems in my family that I didn't fully understand before this all started. The wedding planning issue was just the thing that brought everything to the surface. Update 2: things have escalated in ways I never expected. I thought the drama was bad before, but it got so much worse. About 3 weeks ago, I started hearing from people that Carmen was telling a new version of her story. This time she wasn't just saying I had rejected her business, she was claiming that Elena had actively sabotaged her by spreading lies about her work quality to turn me against her. Carmen was telling people that Elena had shown me photos of poorly planned events and claimed they were Carmen's work, when they were actually from other planners. She said Elena was threatened by competition from a younger planner and had manipulated me into choosing her instead. This was completely false. Elena had never said anything negative about Carmen's work to me. I made my decision based on Elena's experience level and my own observations of Carmen's previous events. But Carmen's new story was getting sympathy from people who didn't know Elena well. I found out about this from my coworker Rachel, whose sister goes to the same gym as Carmen. Rachel said Carmen had been telling this story to several people at the gym, and some of them were saying they would never hire Elena for their events because they didn't want to support someone who played dirty business games. This really upset me because Elena's reputation was being damaged by Carmen's lies. Elena had worked hard to build her business over 15 years, and now Carmen was trying to destroy that with false accusations. I decided I had to do something to protect Elena. I called Mom and told her what Carmen was saying now. I explained that Carmen was hurting an innocent person who had never done anything wrong. I asked Mom to talk to Carmen and get her to stop spreading these lies. Mom's response shocked me. She said she didn't think Carmen was lying. She said maybe Elena really had said things about Carmen that I didn't hear or remember. Mom suggested that Elena might have influenced my decision in subtle ways that I wasn't aware of. I couldn't believe Mom was willing to believe Carmen's increasingly wild accusations rather than accept that Carmen was making things up. I asked Mom if she really thought Elena, who had been nothing but kind to our family for over 10 years, would suddenly become vindictive and manipulative over a wedding planning job. Mom said she didn't know what to think anymore, but she felt like she had to support Carmen because Carmen was her daughter and was obviously in pain about the whole situation. Mom said that even if Carmen was exaggerating some details, her hurt feelings were real and that should matter more than getting every fact right. This conversation made me realize that Mom was never going to hold Carmen accountable for anything. She was going to enable Carmen's bad behavior no matter what, even if it meant letting Carmen hurt other people with lies. I decided to talk to Elena about what was happening so she could decide how to handle the situation. When I told her what Carmen was saying, Elena got very quiet. Then she told me something that changed everything. Elena said this wasn't the first time Carmen had made false accusations about her. About 2 years ago, when Carmen was first starting her event planning business, she had accused Elena of stealing her clients. Carmen claimed that Elena was contacting people who had inquired about Carmen's services and convincing them to hire Elena instead. Elena had never done anything like that. She didn't even know who Carmen's potential clients were. But Carmen had gotten so aggressive about these accusations that Elena had to ask David to talk to Carmen and get her to stop. David had handled it quietly within the family, so I never heard about it. Elena said she had hoped that incident was just Carmen feeling insecure about starting her business, but now she was seeing it was part of a pattern. Carmen seemed to blame Elena whenever something went wrong with her business, rather than looking at her own mistakes. Elena also told me that Carmen had been posting negative reviews about her business online using fake names. Elena had figured out it was Carmen because some of the reviews mentioned specific details that only family members would know about Elena's personal life. Elena had been trying to get the fake reviews removed, but some of them were still affecting her business ratings. I was shocked that Carmen would go this far to hurt Elena. Writing fake bad reviews could seriously damage a small business, especially one that relies on word-of-mouth referrals like event planning. Elena said she hadn't told me about any of this before because she didn't want to cause more family drama. She had been hoping Carmen would eventually grow out of this behavior, but now she was worried it was getting worse instead of better. I felt terrible that Elena had been dealing with Carmen's harassment for years without me knowing about it. I also felt guilty that my wedding planning decision had given Carmen a new excuse to attack Elena. I decided I needed to confront Carmen directly about all of this. I drove to Mom's house where Carmen was living and knocked on the door. Mom answered and said Carmen didn't want to see me, but I said this was too important to ignore. Carmen finally came to the door, and I asked her to step outside so we could talk privately. I told her I knew about the fake reviews and the lies she had been spreading about Elena. I said her behavior was unacceptable and she needed to stop immediately. Carmen denied everything at first. She said she had never written any fake reviews and that Elena was probably making that up to get sympathy. But when I mentioned specific details from the reviews that only Carmen would know, she got defensive and started yelling. Carmen said Elena deserved whatever bad reviews she got because Elena had been trying to steal her business for years. She said Elena was jealous of her success and was trying to sabotage her career. She also said I was a terrible sister for believing Elena over my own family. I told Carmen that her accusations didn't make sense. Elena was already established in the business and didn't need to steal clients from someone who was just starting out. I said Carmen's business problems were her own responsibility, not Elena's fault. Carmen got even angrier and said I had always favored my stepfamily over my real family. She brought up old grievances from when we were teenagers and accused me of trying to replace her with Elena as David's favorite. She said I was selfish and had never cared about her feelings. The conversation was going nowhere, so I gave Carmen an ultimatum. I told her she needed to stop spreading lies about Elena, remove any fake reviews she had posted, and apologize for the damage she had caused. If she didn't do these things within a week, I would have no choice but to cut contact with her completely. Carmen said she would rather never speak to me again than apologize to Elena for things she didn't do. She went inside and slammed the door. Mom came outside a few minutes later and said I had handled the situation badly. She said Carmen was crying and more upset than ever. Mom asked me to apologize to Carmen for accusing her of things I couldn't prove. I told Mom I was done protecting Carmen from the consequences of her actions. I said if Mom wanted to enable Carmen's behavior, that was her choice, but I wasn't going to be part of it anymore. The week deadline I gave Carmen passed without any response from her. The fake reviews were still up, and I heard from Rachel that Carmen was still telling people at the gym that Elena was trying to sabotage her business. I made the decision to go no contact with both Carmen and Mom. I blocked their phone numbers and social media accounts. I told David and Elena about my decision, and they were supportive even though they felt bad about the family being divided. Jake was relieved that I finally set boundaries with Carmen and Mom. He said the constant drama was affecting our marriage and our ability to enjoy being newlyweds. He was glad I was prioritizing our life together over trying to fix people who didn't want to change. Some extended family members have reached out to ask what's going on, but I've kept my explanations simple. I just say that Carmen and I have different views on some important issues and we've decided it's better not to be in contact right now. It's been hard to accept that my relationship with my sister and mother might be permanently damaged. But I realized I can't have healthy relationships with people who think it's okay to lie and hurt others to get what they want. Elena's business is recovering from the fake reviews, and she's gotten several new clients through referrals from my wedding guests who were impressed with her work. I'm glad something positive came out of this mess for her. Update 3. I thought my last update would be the end of this story, but Carmen and Mom had one more surprise for me. About 3 weeks ago, I got a call at work from someone who said she was a reporter for our local newspaper. She said she was working on a story about family businesses and had heard about a situation involving wedding planning services. She wanted to interview me about my experience choosing between family and professional service providers. I was confused about how a reporter would have heard about my personal family drama. I told her I wasn't interested in being interviewed and asked how she got my contact information. She said someone had reached out to the newspaper with a story idea about supporting local small businesses over established companies. I had a sinking feeling that Carmen was behind this somehow. I asked the reporter what exactly she had been told, and she said her source claimed that a young entrepreneur had lost a major client to an established competitor who had used unfair business practices to steal the job. The reporter said she was trying to verify the details of the story before deciding whether to publish it. She had been given my name as the client who chose the established business, and wanted to hear my side of what happened. I realized Carmen was trying to get her version of events published in the newspaper, probably hoping it would damage Elena's business even more. I told the reporter that the situation was a private family matter and asked her not to publish anything about it. I also explained that the claims about unfair business practices were false. The reporter seemed surprised to learn there were family relationships involved, since her source hadn't mentioned that detail. She said she would need to do more research before moving forward with any story. I immediately called Elena to warn her about what was happening. Elena was horrified that Carmen was trying to drag their conflict into the local media. She said several clients had already asked her about rumors they had heard, and a newspaper article could destroy her reputation completely. I decided I had to take action to stop this before it went any further. I called the newspaper's main number and asked to speak with the reporter's editor. I explained that someone was trying to use the newspaper to spread false information about a local business owner, and that the real story involved personal family conflicts, not legitimate business issues. The editor was professional and thanked me for bringing this to their attention. He said they would investigate the claims more thoroughly before publishing anything. A few days later, the reporter called me back to say they had decided not to move forward with the story because they couldn't verify the business misconduct allegations. But the damage was already starting to spread in other ways. Carmen had apparently contacted several people in the local event planning industry and told them Elena was using unethical practices to steal clients. Some vendors who worked with Elena started questioning whether they wanted to continue that relationship. Elena was devastated. She had spent 15 years building professional relationships in our community, and now those relationships were being poisoned by Carmen's lies. Elena started crying when she told me about a vendor who had canceled their contract with her because they didn't want to be associated with any business drama. I realized I couldn't just ignore this situation anymore. Carmen's behavior was escalating to the point where she was actively trying to destroy Elena's livelihood. I decided to take legal action. I consulted with a lawyer about whether Carmen's false statements could be considered defamation. The lawyer said that since Carmen was making specific false claims about Elena's business practices that were causing financial harm, Elena might have grounds for a defamation lawsuit. Elena was hesitant about pursuing legal action against Carmen because she didn't want to make the family situation even worse. But I convinced her that Carmen wasn't going to stop on her own, and Elena deserved to protect her business and reputation. We decided to start with a cease and desist letter. The lawyer drafted a letter demanding that Carmen stop making false statements about Elena's business and remove any fake reviews she had posted online. The letter warned that continued defamatory behavior could result in a lawsuit. The letter was sent to Carmen at Mom's address. Within 2 days, I got an angry call from Mom. She was furious that I was involving lawyers in our family problems. She said I was being vindictive and trying to destroy Carmen's life over a simple misunderstanding. Mom claimed that Carmen had never intended to hurt Elena's business and was just trying to defend herself against what she saw as unfair treatment. Mom said involving lawyers was going too far and that I should be ashamed of threatening my own sister with legal action. I told Mom that Carmen's behavior had gone far beyond defending herself. She was actively trying to damage Elena's reputation and business with false accusations. I said if Carmen stopped spreading lies, there would be no need for legal action. Mom said she would talk to Carmen about the situation, but she made it clear she thought I was being unreasonable. She also said she was disappointed in me for prioritizing my stepfamily over my real family, even when it came to legal matters. A few days later, I noticed that several of the fake reviews about Elena's business had been removed from various websites. Carmen also stopped posting on social media about her business conflicts. I hoped this meant the cease and desist letter had worked. But last week, I found out Carmen had moved to a different city about 2 hours away. She told people she was relocating to expand her business into a new market, but I suspect she left because the legal pressure made her uncomfortable. Mom called to tell me about Carmen's move, and she blamed me for driving my sister out of town. She said Carmen felt like she couldn't stay in a place where her own family was working against her success. Mom said I had won my fight against Carmen, but at the cost of losing my sister forever. I don't see it that way. Carmen made choices that hurt other people, and when she faced consequences for those choices, she decided to leave rather than take responsibility for her actions. I never wanted to lose my relationship with my sister, but I wasn't willing to let her destroy Elena's business just to keep the peace. Elena's business is slowly recovering from the damage Carmen caused. Several vendors have resumed working with her after learning the truth about what happened. Elena got 2 new wedding bookings last month from referrals, which shows that her reputation is healing. David has been supportive throughout this whole situation. He feels bad that his marriage to Mom has created divisions in our family, but he also understands why I had to protect Elena. David said he's proud of me for standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. Jake and I have been doing well despite all the family drama. We've been focusing on building our life together and not letting other people's problems affect our happiness. We're planning to buy a house next year and maybe start thinking about having kids. I haven't spoken to Mom or Carmen in over 2 months now. I'm sad about losing those relationships, but I also feel relieved not to be dealing with constant drama and manipulation. Some family members have tried to encourage reconciliation, but I'm not ready for that yet. I think Carmen needs to face the consequences of her actions and maybe get some help for her tendency to blame others for her problems. Until she's willing to take responsibility for the harm she caused, I don't see how we could have a healthy relationship. Mom would need to acknowledge that she enabled Carmen's behavior instead of holding her accountable. I don't think Mom is ready to admit that her way of handling the situation made things worse. For now, I'm focusing on the positive relationships in my life. Elena has become even more important to me through this experience, and I'm grateful to have her as part of my family. David continues to be a wonderful stepfather, and Jake has been incredibly supportive. I learned that sometimes protecting the people you care about means making difficult choices, even when those choices hurt other relationships. I'm at peace with the decisions I made, and I hope someday Carmen and Mom will understand why I felt I had no other choice.